Yep. Do like a delay pedal. Hello folks, hope you're well. Got a really interesting video for you today, which perhaps would have been more interesting if I'd not broke the first rule of being a semi-pro YouTuber, which is, you know, ABC, always be content creating. Which is to say, we did a gig and I didn't take the cameras. I basically thought I'd give myself the night off, which is, you know, a healthy and sensible thing to do. But it turned out to be very much a night that I should have filmed, and yeah, sorry about that. Basically, we played in Huddersfield recently. I'd never even been to Huddersfield, and we opened a show for a couple of great bands. It was my first gig, full band gig, with no amp. Why I thought that wasn't, you know, why I thought I should have the night off from filming, I'll never know. Anyway, we were opening the show. We went all the way to Huddersfield to open this show. And that was the, you know, the main reason why I thought, oh, I won't take the camera because we're only opening, you know, it's not a super sort of significant show. And of course it might have gone horribly wrong, but I wouldn't have hidden that fact from you. I would have just done a video like this. I didn't really know how this was going to go, but it went very well. And I thought I would just show you how I did it. I thought I'd go through some of the sounds that I used. If you're new around here, you may not have seen the live rig video that I did at the start of this year before all the touring that I've done with Bryony and the band. And that was a totally different setup. So if you want to watch that, go and check that out. It's a good video. They all are. I hope you enjoyed last week's video with Greg. Greg's given me back. We had a lot of fun doing that, and some lovely feedback. And, you know, the usual feedback of people telling me that I talk too much, which I don't take personally. You know, I've only done 4 interviews, and I'm trying to improve my David Frost, Michael Parkinson impression. But, you know, as we all know, dead air is a crime. Anyway, let's crack on with today's video. Let's start with what's going on down here, shall we? So if you want to have a little look at it, I'm going to put my phone there with my notes on just so I don't miss anything. Hope that's not too... Hope that doesn't break the illusion too much. A big part of the reason that I felt and feel confident doing now full band gigs without the amplifier is YouTube. Honestly, if I didn't have this channel, I would never have bothered spending as much time with the Boss GX10 as I have. And, you know, so thanks to you guys for that, you know, for watching and for making it seem like it's worth doing these things. We've got the hybrid board. We've done a video on that. If you want to go and have a look at that, that's probably, it's over here somewhere, isn't it? So it is the same, nearly the same board as the hybrid video, but you'll notice that the TU3 is gone, and that's because there is a new pedal on there. If you know what that is, if you know what the pedal is, if you've seen any of that, let me know in the comments. There's enough adverts out for that pedal at the minute, and I'm not being paid for it. Suffice to say, I'll do my usual honest review on it. But that's, you know, that was a special thing for me. I've never bought a pedal faster. Anyway, let's quickly talk about how it was being used. So when I got this, I sacked off all of that and used that into the Fender Blues Junior, which is not over there. So it was the Boss GX10 into the Fender Blues Junior. For the YouTube videos, it's been mainly just that. This isn't a comparison. We all know they're going to sound different. What you can do if you want to like see how it's changed and evolved is go back to the old live rig video, which was me sat here with just this into the Blues Junior. Now, the reason I'm telling you that is because all of the patches we're looking at today, you can see, so that start here. These were the very first patches that I built on the Boss GX10, which have obviously been changed, I'm going to say considerably, to accommodate for the fact that we're not using an amp. So very quickly, Keeley compressor always on. That's new. We're coming on to that. that's back on the board. EQ, we've talked about that. Super duper mystery pedal, Crowther Hotcake, Boss GX10. I think at this point it's worth me talking through in some detail how I actually approach the rig build, the patch edit, if you like, for use with the full band. I spent so long on these sounds that, you know, I didn't just want to, you know, completely change the setup. I was quite happy with how they sounded. And I just figured if I can get an amplifier in here to sound like how I want it to sound, then, you know, we're laughing. In the show, this patch is a Capo 2, so we'll do a Capo 2. Nice. Essentially, you've got your chains on the Boss thing. The logical thought would be that you could literally just drop in, you know, go to the effects palette, find the amp, and drop an amplifier in. You know, an amplifier that on some level sounds like, or maybe even is your amplifier into the chain, and you know, it'll just be the same. But of course, it doesn't work like that. What I'm coming around to is that, you know, I had to do quite a bit of editing. I did a bit of research on this, and the general thinking is that if you're using a modeler for a live show, you should keep it kind of fairly simple for reasons of volume consistency between patches and tonal consistency. In other words, you don't want to be using like a different amp on each patch. And to some extent, I followed those suggestions, and also I completely ignored them. I didn't do the one patch and then build, you know, overdrive, chorus, whatever. Like, I didn't do a general sound. Each song still has a specific sound, and I suppose I'll go through that to begin with. This is a song called Cherry Red. The reason I picked this is it starts with... It starts with a very simple guitar sound, you know, an overdriven Vox. So I use Fender generally, live, Fender amps. Almost all of the patches on this contain Vox amps. The Diamond amp sim. We did a video on the Vox rig build, which I guess maybe led into this. If you want to watch the rig build, you can go there and check that out. I designed this to work with the Crowther Hotcake, you know, to have this, the option of putting that on. So, you know, here it is with the Crowther Hotcake. Sounds great, doesn't it? When I'm listening to the patches through the monitors here, I'm tempted to sort of go in and start EQing them, because they sound a little, to my morning ears, they sound a little dark to my ears, but I know that they're fine through the PA. In fact, they sound fantastic through the PA. We'll come on to the gig itself in a bit. So an example song would be that patch to start the song. Then in the first verse, I would go bang into this sound. Out of tune, or just an aggressive chorus, a bit out of tune. Yeah, so. And that's the sort of the verse sound. And then for the chorus, this is pretty cool. Whoops. Now I know that's not going to mean much in context, but that's kind of the you know, you don't need to know the song to hear the difference in those sounds. And this one was also designed with the option of the hotcake in mind, you know, so that sounds cool, doesn't it? I think that's how it's a little bit Brian May, that, isn't it? This lot were designed to work with the hotcake and thus work with my mid boost. if you want to do that. But they also were designed to be fine as is. In other words, they were designed to work like a real amplifier. I started with 2 amps. I did the diamond amp on some of them, and I also then did the Fender amp. I'll go to one that used the Fender amp to begin with, and I'll say at this point, I didn't end up using the Fender amp at all. This one again is designed to work with the Hotcake and the carbon copy. We'll come on to that in a sec. That is a whole other thing, because if you remember, that was gone, but now it's back. This one is a Capo 1 song. Cool patch actually this is. This is the one that is... This is the one that is sort of a pedal steel. Well, I might as well show you as it's meant to sound. Here we go. It's not meant to sound like that. I've just noticed that the mix is, yeah, I was like, that's way too much delay. Yeah, here we go. That's more like it. Here we go. Better. So that is from a song called The Party, which I think, if pushed, is my favourite Bryony Williams song, right up my street, really good fun. And that is not, I think this is one of the only patches that is not the Vox. You'll see a pattern, all of my patches basically revolve, I've realised, around a couple of the amps. So that is in itself, I guess, a recommendation here. This is the JC 120, so it's like for the kind of heavier sounds on the, you know what, if you've watched any of my videos, when I say heavier sounds, I'm not doing metal, sadly, at the moment. Heavier sounds, pushed, tube amp sounds, I'm using the Vox, the Diamond amp, and for the clean sounds, although I started with the Fender, because they've got a couple of different Fenders on there, I'm not doing that. I ended up, for this gig, for the non-amp gigs, using the JC 120. And again, that has been all over my patches. So it's almost like all this stuff that I've been doing on YouTube has like informed what's going to work for me in the live setting. So that's an interesting patch. That's got the old slow gear. Can anyone tell me about the original slow gear? Boss slow gear pedal, because it's literally the perfect effect. It just takes the front off the note and swells up. I don't know anything about that pedal. If any of you wise people out there could tell me about the slow gear, I don't think you can get them anymore. What is it? When is it from? Do you have one? Please do let me know in the comments. To finish up on the amps, if we just smash through and look at random patches, that's that. Okay, so this one is cool. It's the Vox again. This is going to be horribly out of tune. I'm afraid the heavy chorus on that is not going to be enough to disguise how horrifically out of tune it is. Really cool. This is from an older song of Bryony's called Scared. I already had it on. How about that? The carbon copy, I mean, the wonderful and the dangerous thing about the carbon copy is that you could leave that on all show and not be appalled by it. And then a rat, which you probably definitely don't want on. Which sounds really cool with this. That's another one that is designed, if I so wish, to work with the Crowd the Hotcake. Let's continue with the spin. I'm just spinning random, here we go, in between days. That's another Vox. So that's kind of a straightforward one. This is a cool sound though. Here we go. That's definitely another one of these. Yeah, here we go. So I'll put the root notes in so you can hear it in context. I'll put the root notes in if I can, yeah, play it. And now I'll play it correctly. The Crowd the Hotcake, that maybe is a little on the thick side. So here's without. There you go. So that's another Vox. The point I'm making here is that it's all Vox, apart from when it isn't. And when it isn't, it is, what did I say? JC 120. Here you go, here's a heavier one. Don't need that. Here we go. So this is perfect for that, isn't it? I'd probably have to clear that with Bryony first. That's not how the song goes. But it is a lot of fun. I know this seems slightly haphazard, but the idea being, you know, if I'm using JC 120, I know you all want me to press the super duper mystery pedal, but I'm resisting. Oh, go on, I will. So the idea being for the party, that's like the one sound, and then the other sound is this kind of fairly simple slap delay. Using a JC 120. I think that basically covers the amps. Where I think you should put your time if you're going to do this, and obviously this is probably a tip that applies to anyone using any modeler. The first thing you need to really spend the time on it is the volume level. Into song volume level, but also, you know, from song to song. I think that this is the only way that the use of multiple patches, in other words, I'm using 2 or 3 different patches per song, and I never saw any panic on the sound engineer's face. So once I'd figured out the 2 to 3 amps that I was going to use for the show and dialed them in, and basically the settings remain very similar, if not the same, across every usage of that amp. And I think that's not a bad idea if you're going to do something like this. Once I'd figured that out, the main place that I spent my time was balancing the patches. And I'll show you very quickly how I did that. And then I'll show you within one song how that works. So if we go to the start of the set, on, This is literally how I did it. You wouldn't expect it that way, yeah. And you see that none of them are like particularly jumping out, and you know, they apart from the ones that need to be a little bit louder. I will now show you how it works within the context of one song. So like probably the most dynamic song in the set is one called Berlin, and it starts with this sound. Let's get it right, shall we? Here we go. Which is a pad, really. Then it goes to this sound, which is quite a cool vibrato, clean. And then it goes to the solo. So there you go. That's cool. That method of balancing the patches relative to one another in terms of the individual songs and then doing the overall flick through the set seem to work quite nicely. Let's now jump over to here. The carbon copy is back on the board. I've said this for a very long time. It is by far my favourite delay pedal. As soon as I put it back on there, it was like, I can't believe I ever took it off, really. As an experiment, I put it in the send and return, and that in itself has been a huge learning curve. So let's just turn it up a little bit, shall we, so you can hear it. So that's what a carbon copy sounds like, a beautiful analog delay pedal. When I implemented this guy on the send and return, which was an experiment to begin with, I was putting it after the amp block and running into all kinds of problems. There was, and I've since read online that other people have said this about the send and return, clipping, weird artifacts, distorted kind of signal stuff. I had it in the place where you would think, you know, it might go, which is living with the other delays and reverbs after the amp block. It didn't work there for me at all. As soon as I moved it before the amp block, it worked perfectly. Really, that's just a quick tip from me. If you're using the send and return, Boss people, I would strongly recommend that at least to begin with, you are putting it before the amp block. I love having the carbon copy back on the board. Having a delay that you can play with, you know, is super cool. If you're wearing headphones there, my apologies. But that, you know, that's why I love having it on the board. Sorry about that, Bucky. It wasn't a very nice noise, was it? If you're thinking about using that send and return, just consider where you're putting it. By all means, try. I'm not going to show you where I had it before. But, you know, the other thing I'll say about that weird issue is that it didn't happen every time. The fault itself was completely unreliable in terms of I couldn't reproduce this clipping, and the only way I could get rid of it was to stick it before the amplifier, and then it just sounded like the carbon copy, which is, after all, what I wanted. And with that, folks, we are at the show. I'd put all the time in on the setup. Very happy with how it was sounding. I took with me, these are actually Lucy's, a set of fairly cheap-ish. How much are these?
About 50, 60 quid.
Cheap on the scale of what you can pay, in-ear monitors. And my plan was, you can see here, I was just going to run a headphone jack, no wireless. I was just going to literally have these connected, and I'd practice this to the headphone cable that run it up the back of my jumper. You know, I don't move around that much on stage. It wouldn't have been a problem. Set all that up, got the volume set up for that, perfect. Get to the sound check. We had wedges at the sound check. And I think the only bit of footage I've got from the gig is at the sound check. So we'll put that in now. I told you it was a bit. It's literally a bit of footage. And got everything sounding cool. And then I was like, okay, cool. Let's, I'd planned to use them. So let's use them. Put the in-ear monitors in. Now I'd set it up at home at a level that I could hear the guitar clearly over the volume coming out of the speakers. Put them in my ears, and it was just like putting earplugs in. You know, in the sense that I couldn't hear the guitar coming out of my in-ear monitors. It was a bizarre experience. I checked, and I sort of, took them to a quieter spot in the venue because I've got this long extension cord. Yeah, the guitar's coming out. The noise on stage was such that I'd have had to have these a lot louder. And at that point, I binned them. I didn't use them. You know, I presume if you maybe had made to measure, full, in-ear,
Molded.
That's the word I was looking for. Yeah, molded. It might have been better. Also, if I had the ability to independently turn them off, basically I was just running the Boss GX10 at a level that would suit front of house and work for the headphones. If I could have cranked them up a bit, that would have been cool. But I don't really want to be having these much louder than they are. So back to the drawing board as far as the in-ear monitors. I should say the rest of the band don't use in-ear monitors, so it was kind of a bit of a gamble. Anyway, it would have just been my guitar in them. But the wedges were fine. The gig went well. The sound guy was great. We've had some great sound guys this year. I had a wedge all to myself. It was a big enough venue, and I think this is the key here. Ironically, if you're playing a venue big enough to have a 50 watt, 100 watt amp, you're probably in the best possible situation to make the modeler work. In some of the venues, I stand by the fact that this, having me silent on stage would not provide a great experience for the people who are at the front of the stage. But in a venue where really nobody can hear what is coming off the stage, everything is coming through the PA, and this venue was loud. It was one of those rooms where it just felt very loud. What was coming off the stage, apart from maybe the drums, was sort of irrelevant, really. So it worked perfectly. The gig was great. Would I do it again? Yeah. I think I know the situation that this is going to be most applicable to. I still prefer amps. I think I still prefer having that amp on stage for this gig, but it is a great option to have, particularly for a gig like that where it's you're first on. There's not a lot of space on stage anyway because there's two other bands backline. It's kind of the perfect solution. So I think that about does it for today's show. I want to shout out the other bands that were playing. The Caymans, great bunch of guys. Had a really nice chat to them. They played 2 gigs that day. The one that we were doing was the second, and they'd already played a matinee show with Pete Doherty earlier that day. Had a lovely chat to them. One of the dudes in that band was a Boss GX 100 user. So if you're watching the channel, shout out to you, sir, to all of you. And the main band were a great band called To The Lighthouse, and that was the connection. Dan, our bass player, sort of knows those guys. And, I turn up and the guitarist has just got a rack with like 3 Rickenbackers in it. And the bass player, super cool, playing a beautiful Rickenbacker, a black 4001. So lesson learned, folks. I should have took the camera. We actually did like a little rig rundown. He had a great rig. So again, if you're watching, on the off chance, let's do it sometime. Love to get you on the channel and talk Rickenbackers. Hopefully the view in the background of my 330 today has been sufficient for the Rickenbacker fans. But the reason I'm showing you it with the telly today is because that is what I use live. Let me know that it's so weird, isn't it? This is a 19-year-old Mexican telly, and I'm so ready to play it at home, but the idea of doing a gig without this thing, to me, is unthinkable. Let me know in the comments, do you have like work guitars? Is that a weird thing to say? Are there guitars that are just home guitars and work guitars? Maybe I'll do a video on that at some point. But for now, if you've enjoyed this video, please like it, give me a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, check out our back catalogue. We've got tons of good stuff. There's a lot coming in the next few weeks, so stick around, and many thanks for watching.